I used to feel incredibly confident about our homeschool math routine. My daughter was only 8, and she could zoom through worksheets like it was a game. 50 multiplication problems in 10 minutes, pages of correct answers, neat little numbers lined up in tidy columns. Everything looked perfect. If someone had asked me, I would have proudly said, "Math is her strength. We've got this part figured out." And honestly, I believed it. Then one normal afternoon, in the most ordinary moment, the illusion fell apart. We were sitting at the table eating lunch. Nothing fancy, just pizza. I casually asked her a question that felt so simple it barely registered in my mind. If we have 3 pizzas, and each pizza is cut into 8 slices, how many total slices do we have? I fully expected her to answer immediately. This child could multiply 7 or 8 in her sleep. 3 groups of 8 should have been almost effortless for her, but instead she paused. Her eyebrows pulled together. She stared at the table. She asked me to repeat the question. She guessed. She changed her guess. She got frustrated. And after a few minutes, her expression shifted into something I'd never seen during math time, confusion mixed with embarrassment. And that moment hit me like a brick. She could multiply on paper. She could complete worksheets at lightning speed. She could recite facts and follow steps and mimic formulas, but she could not apply any of it. My daughter wasn't learning math. She was learning patterns. She wasn't thinking. She was remembering. And the realization honestly scared me because suddenly everything I thought she knew felt shaky. What happens when she gets older and the math isn't just neat rows of numbers? What happens when she needs to solve a problem she's never seen before? What happens when the steps aren't handed to her? If she couldn't connect the idea of 3 groups of 8 to pizza slices in front of her, then what did she really understand? That moment opened a door I didn't expect to walk through, a door into questioning, researching, reflecting, and ultimately relearning what real math education actually looks like. And the more I dug, the more I realized this wasn't just my problem. This is happening to thousands of homeschool families, maybe more. Children who look like they're excelling aren't. They're performing math, not understanding it. Like actors reading lines perfectly without knowing what they're saying. Like paint-by-number artists who can follow an outline flawlessly but cannot draw a single shape on a blank page. Parents, like me, see fast work and correct answers and think, great, they get it. But quickness is not comprehension. Accuracy on repetitive worksheets is not mastery. The real test is this. Can they think mathematically when the structure disappears? When I finally stepped back and started paying attention, I saw clear patterns. Signs that reveal when a child is memorizing instead of learning. I noticed these 5 most clearly. They solve problems quickly but cannot explain their thinking. If a child answers 56 for 7 times 8 but cannot explain what multiplication represents, they don't truly understand. They just recall. They freeze when a problem looks different than usual. Change the language, the format, or the context, and everything collapses. They panic if they forget the exact steps. Real understanding allows flexibility. Rote learning collapses under pressure. They can do worksheets but get lost in real situations. Numbers in boxes? Fine. Numbers in the real world? Panic. They avoid explaining because explanations reveal understanding, or the lack of it. Children who truly get math want to explain. Children who memorize try to hide. Once I saw this, I couldn't unsee it. So I changed how we approached math. I stopped treating speed as success. I stopped assuming correct answers meant comprehension. I stopped praising fast worksheet completion like it was achievement. Instead, I started doing something entirely different. Mixing the learning. Not replacing worksheets, but expanding beyond them. Word problems, real-life scenarios, visual models, hands-on manipulatives, talking through solutions, asking questions like, what does this actually mean? Why does this work? How else could we solve this? Show me a real example. What if the numbers were different? The results were eye-opening. She could do 7 through 8 instantly. But understanding multiplication as repeated addition, as arrays, as groups, as equal jumps on a number line, that took work. She could divide fractions, but explaining why we flip and multiply? At first, she couldn't say anything beyond, because that's the rule. And I realized how easy it had been to mistake remembering rules for understanding ideas. That's when I created something I now call Gap Radar, a simple weekly habit that changed everything. 20 minutes every week where I intentionally check for understanding instead of speed. One short session. No stress, no drilling. Just evaluating true comprehension. Some days we solve puzzles. Some days we talk through problems out loud. Some days we work with real objects: blocks, coins, snacks, measuring cups, pizza slices, anything physical that forces thinking. Some days I simply ask questions and listen. And within about 60 days, I watched a transformation. She slowed down in the best way. She started pausing before answering, not because she didn't know, but because she was thinking more deeply. She started explaining her reasoning, even when I didn't ask. She recognized patterns instead of memorizing steps. She tried new strategies instead of relying on one formula. She even discovered methods I hadn't taught her because she understood the concepts enough to adapt. She didn't just do math, she became a mathematical thinker. Now she helps her younger brother with math, and the way she explains concepts shows me how far she's come. She isn't performing anymore. She's reasoning, visualizing, exploring. And here's the part that stays with me. If that simple pizza moment hadn't happened, I never would have seen any of this. She would still be breezing through worksheets, and I would still be praising speed instead of thinking. And eventually she would have hit a wall. Not because she wasn't capable, but because memorization has a limit. Understanding does not. That realization has changed our homeschool permanently. Now I ask myself constantly, am I teaching her to answer? Or am I teaching her to think? Because math ability is not about speed. It is not about having the answer first. It is not about following steps perfectly. Math ability is about reasoning, problem solving, understanding patterns, and applying concepts in new situations. And so now I ask every homeschool parent this, Nabit, not to scare, but to help. Are your kids actually learning math? Or are they learning to mimic math? Are they thinkers or memorizers? And what systems do you have in place to catch the difference before it becomes a long-term learning gap? Because I learned something powerful. Children don't struggle with math because they're not capable. They struggle because they were taught procedures instead of ideas. They memorize instead of understand. They're praised for speed instead of depth. And at some point, worksheets can't hide the truth anymore. My daughter didn't need a new curriculum. She didn't need harder worksheets. She didn't need more drills or flashcards. She needed time to think. She needed mixed problem types. She needed real-world practice. She needed me to value reasoning more than rapid answers. Once that shift happened, everything changed. Her confidence, her curiosity, her flexibility, even her enjoyment of math. Today, when she faces a problem she's never seen before, she doesn't freeze. She doesn't panic. She doesn't hope she remembers the right steps. She starts thinking. And that is the goal, isn't it? Not creating children who can fill in answer blanks quickly, but raising children who can engage with the world intelligently, flexibly, creatively, and confidently. Memorization fades, understanding lasts. So now I don't ask, how fast did you finish? I ask, what did your brain do today? And I encourage every homeschool parent to consider doing the same. Not someday, not later, but now. Because the earlier you catch the difference between performing math and actually understanding it, the more powerfully you shape your child's future learning. And sometimes, all it takes to see the truth is one simple question over pizza.